Globalization greatly affects the different aspects of world society. It does not only have an impact on the economic, cultural, and social aspects of the world but also on its political aspect. This lesson covers the global interstate system. This lesson's learning competencies are: explain the effects of globalization on governments. Identify the institutions that govern international relations. Differentiate internationalism from globalism. To evaluate your understanding of the lesson, you are to answer the following guide questions. 1. What are the effects of globalization on governments? 2. What are the institutions that govern international relations? 3. What is the difference between internationalism from globalism? Global interstate system. With the impact of globalization on the political system of the world, the traditional state system is now becoming constrained to address global issues and patterns. The key motivating concepts of conventional state systems of authority and sovereignty, according to international thinkers, run counter to the necessity for increased political and economic cooperation across different governments and people. As such, with the great influence of globalization is the development of the global interstate system. Based on the world system theory, the global interstate system is organized politically as a system of competing and allying states. It asserts that all states are defined by their interactions with other states or participation in the global economy, and that state divisions aid in the segmentation of the globe into a core, periphery, and semi-periphery. We now proceed to the discussion on the effects of globalization on governments. Globalization has an impact on governments in a variety of ways, one of which is the government's motivation to accumulate power in a unitary international government. Today, governments are forming regional power blocks, which could eventually merge into a single political entity. Not to forget, the effect of globalization on governments is the formation of world organizations that address governmental issues such as education, crime, poverty, and the environment, among others. The UN is an example of a successful global diplomatic village. Through delegates, member countries of the UN agree on some rules and policies to address global issues that governments face. The accumulation of power by developed countries is another effect of globalization on politics. Experts argue that the concentration of power may lead to developed countries exploiting their developing counterparts. The UN General Assembly versus the Security Council is a good example. The former has more members but is less powerful than the latter, which has only 5 permanent members: the United States, the United Kingdom, China, France, and Russia. Though the UN always adopts international laws that member states must follow, powerful countries such as the United States always have a say in the final decision that is made and implemented. Furthermore, political globalization is likely to breed ideological conflicts. Most countries around the world are experimenting with various forms of governance, such as capitalism, democracy, or communism. When powerful countries decide to spread their ideologies and impose them on other nations around the world, tensions are likely to rise. As a condition for receiving aid, developing countries are sometimes forced to adopt some of the political ideologies of powerful states. Another effect of globalization on governments is the rise of non-governmental organizations (NGOs) around the world. These organizations are actively involved in public policies such as development efforts and humanitarian aid, among other things. Over the years, these organizations have played an important role in promoting the welfare of the less fortunate in society, among other things, by funding multi-million-dollar development projects. In the light of the enumerated impact of globalization on governments, it is possible to conclude that the effects of globalization on governments are debatable due to both positive and negative consequences. Significantly important to discuss are the institutions that govern international relations. With increased globalization, the governance of global relations has expanded beyond the purview of nation-state governments. The scale and scope of nation-state governments are limited in addressing regional and global issues such as climate change, cybercrime, and global financial crises. Today, there is a growing emphasis on non-state actors' roles in global governance. Non-state actors include non-governmental organizations, NGOs, advocacy networks, voluntary associations, and interest groups. Their more approachable and friendly strategies appeal to the community and even other state actors, and they have the potential to organize across areas. Globalization or internal globalization refers to the transfer of authority to actors in between the state. Participation of these new actors has expanded as the role of the nation-state and government has shifted. Several institutions govern international relations and affairs. The United Nations is a well-known example of one of these institutions. It is regarded as a global governance enabler. The United Nations is an international organization that brings together all of the world's nations to discuss common problems and find shared solutions that benefit all of humanity. Other institutions that govern international relations are but are not limited to the following. 1. International Monetary Fund or IMF. It is a global organization that promotes global monetary cooperation, financial stability, international trade facilitation, high employment and sustainable economic growth, and poverty reduction worldwide. 2. World Bank or WB. It is an international organization that provides financing, advice, and research to developing countries in order to help them advance economically. The bank's primary function is to combat poverty by providing development assistance to middle and low-income countries. 3. World Trade Organizations or WTO. The World Trade Organization WTO, founded in 1995, is an international organization that oversees global trade rules among nations. It succeeded the 1947 General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade (GATT), which was established in the aftermath of World War II. 4. United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization or UNISO. It promotes international collaboration through educational, scientific, and cultural reforms, which contribute to peace and security. 5. World Health Organizations or WHO. It is a United Nations specialized agency in charge of international public health. The primary goal of the WHO is for all people to achieve the best possible level of health. 6. North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO. It is an organization with a collective security system in which its independent member states agree to defend one another against third-party attacks. It was founded during the Cold War in response to the Soviet Union's threat. Military operations in the Balkans, the Middle East, South Asia, and Africa have been carried out by the alliance. Animus in Consolendo Liber, or Mind Free in Deliberation, is the organization's motto. The next topic to be discussed is globalism and internationalism. When it comes to the increasing interconnectivity of countries and people around the world via communications, transportation, and technology, these two terms are frequently used interchangeably. There are, however, distinctions between internationalism and globalism. Internationalism is defined as political, economic, and cultural cooperation among nations, whereas globalism is an ideology based on the belief that people, goods, and information should be able to freely flow across national borders. Furthermore, internationalism emphasizes diversity and celebrates multiculturalism, whereas globalism focuses on the economic aspects of inter-country and societal exchanges. In conclusion, we discussed how economic globalization has affected traditional national governance, as well as internationalization and government. Although there are benefits to globalization in terms of addressing borderless challenges such as climate change and pollution, there are also limitations and challenges to nations' and communities' local sovereignty and self-determination. We also talked about the various institutions that help with global governance. This includes organizations such as the United Nations and international finance and development organizations. In addition, the growing recognition of the role of non-state actors in international affairs, such as civil society groups, is emphasized. Finally, we discussed the distinction between globalism and internationalism. While the former is concerned with the economic aspects of globalization, the latter is concerned with culture and social interactions.